Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. And by New Orleans Tourism Marketing Corporation, New Orleans, where stories are created. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Good evening, I'm Peggy Scott Laborde and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, Ian McNulty, food writer for the New Orleans Advocate. Hello, good to see you again. Hi there.
Thank you.
She is back, baby. Poppy Tooker, host of the radio show Louisiana Eats, airing twice weekly on WWNO Radio. Hello.
Hi, Peg.
Also very nice to see John Kemp, art columnist for Louisiana Life magazine. Hello, Mr. John.
Good back.
And Alan Smason of the Crescent City Jewish News and TheaterCriticism.com, and back from Broadway. Yep. And later on, by the way, director Stephen Edwards and members of the Symphony Chorus of New Orleans will stop by to perform. But first up, Poppy.
My big news is we are looking next week at Dining Out for Life Week. Now, it's been Dining Out for Life Day for 25 years, but now that it's the 25th anniversary and I've been their celebrity chair for 8 years, I declared we'd make a whole week out of it. So that's what's going to happen. And of course, the proceeds are dedicated to helping local HIV, AIDS, and cancer patients also through the Food for Friends program. They've served every year 39,000 meals and hot meals, and 185,000 pounds of groceries are given out through their community groceries. So it's really a great project. And oh my goodness, can you have fun raising money for Food for Friends. We're going to start off on Sunday, June the 2nd at Maypop with a dim sum drag brunch. It's sponsored by Monkey Shoulder, which is a lovely, lovely liquor company. And so it's going to be a cocktail paired brunch. The food's outrageous. Cheesy boudin stuffed bao buns, scallion pancakes with cured pork jowl, pork belly ham, griots and grits, hogshead cheese ravioli with crawfish and saffron, and for dessert, blueberry lemongrass hand pies with corn gelato. And I know that the cocktail that's going to be paired with dessert is a cheeky little number called Monkey Nuts and Berries. So that's what's happening on June the 2nd with Monkey Shoulder at Maypop. Then we move on to Thursday, which is actually Dining Out for Life Day. So there's over 50 restaurants participating, and you can find the whole list online. I will be at Tableau for a Hendrix happy hour from 6 until 8. Vincentos and Lady Beast are going to be reviving their marquee show for another 4 shows that weekend. Everyone with a ticket to the show gets a free Hendrix cocktail, and of course, all going for very good cause. And then we're going to continue Dining Out for Life on Friday with a gay pride happy hour at Brennan's. Now, of course, they have that wonderful bubbly at Brennan's every Friday, but this is going to go from 4 until 6, and at 5 o'clock we're going to have a special guest. Mondo Guerrero from Project Runway is going to be there to saber the champagne in the patio, and that is when Brennan's is going to open up their reservations for their Southern Decadence Drag Brunch, which will take place on Saturday, August the 31st. Then we're going to finish out the week on Saturday with one of Poppy's pop-up drag brunches at Sobu, 11 o'clock. 3 courses and bottomless bellinis, featuring some dishes from the new Sobu menu, including a sangria salad that includes Saint Germain elderflower, Don Q rum, and white wine-infused Louisiana berries with baby greens, marinated cucumbers. How delicious. And a boozy sangria vinaigrette. Their legs and eggs. That's one of the recipes in the book that's coming out, my little drag queen brunch book. And the Toulouse red absinthe soaked strawberries for dessert with crumbled pecan sandies and Honey Whipped Creole cream cheese. Their Electra Cosmetics is going to set up a glitter bar out by the pool. You know, it's going to be 3 courses, 5 drag queens. Mondo Guerrero will be making a special guest appearance there too. And we are just going to have a wild time. So come out and join us all week and dining out for life. It's the good thing to do.
And doing good.
Make a date to do good.
Thank you so much, Poppy.
Thank you.
And speaking about being outside, especially in this weather before it gets too hot, Ian, you've been out and about al fresco.
Well, I wanted to examine a trend that I've seen not just happening around New Orleans restaurants and bars, but actually built into them, right? It wasn't that long ago that finding outdoor space in New Orleans was kind of relegated to the traditional historic courtyards, to a little patio. It was somewhat seasonal, definitely weather dependent, of course, and sort of an adjunct to what it meant to dine out in New Orleans. Well, more and more you see these places that are being designed from the ground up or total renovations that put the outdoor space at the center of the operation. In fact, some of these restaurants and bars are absolutely banking on the viability of outdoor year-round in New Orleans, including in the heat of summer, which we're about to experience. So every summer that comes along is another test for how these are going to work out. But I learned a lot by talking to the people who operate these places, and some of them, you know, everyone acknowledges that yes, it can be a challenge, but that having this setup, even in the summertime, brings them, you know, a certain character. I might even say a certain advantage with their demographic. Pagoda Cafe is one of the leading examples of this because it is completely outside. This is a little place on Bayou Road that's built in that old pagoda building. It was a historic laundry back in the day. Well, the operators of this place really wanted to keep that building intact. And, you know, the inside is just a counter and a kitchen. That's it. Everything is outside. 100% of the seating is out on these decks. They're under these awnings, these umbrellas. There's fans going when it gets hotter. Now, the proprietor there, Shayna, she tells me that it really informs sort of the aesthetic of the whole place, what they can serve, even the type of people that they draw, people who sort of want to lean in a little bit to this living outdoors, you know, being in this together, you know, and when a bit of thunder comes on the horizon, they go, okay, we got to kind of share the space here. It's just a little different mindset for people who kind of fully embrace that idea. Now, summer is a very challenging time in many ways, but restaurants and bars have found ways to work around it. Look at Longway Tavern. This is a place in the French Quarter with half of it seating outside. The inside is a very small Creole cottage, beautifully redone, 18th century building on Toulouse Street. Most of the space especially for any kind of a group, is going to be outside in this courtyard. But look at that courtyard. The proprietors here, the ladies and gentlemen from LeBlanc and Smith Company, what they tell me is they just had to use that space. They wanted to reactivate it. They wanted to bring it back. They knew that was going to entail some management hurdles for it in the summertime, but it was worth the gamble. For instance, you just can't reserve every table. You have to keep flexible. You have to be prepared to bring people inside if it starts a downpour. But they also tell me that some people really do enjoy embracing that outdoorsness of it, even in the summer, that the swelter is the natural feel for this town. They want to be part of it. Barracuda is another great example of this. Brand new uptown, a taco stand, really. Kitchen and counter inside, every little bit of seating outside, some of it covered, most of it not. But there, the proprietor tells me, we're built for this. This is a taco stand. It's tropical, it's light, it's tart margaritas, it's fresh herbs and salsas on the tacos. Now you see this play out in bars too. The Chop Yard, not far away from Barracuda, very big outdoor area, almost like a college quad. I mean, you could set this up as a mini golf course if you wanted. There's so much space between the bars. There, the message is you can get people out on a really hot day to go have a beer outside. At the end of the day, better than you can get New Orleans people to come out in the cold. On those cold winter days, forget it. These places are ghost towns. But even when it's hot, especially maybe with a younger generation that's embracing these things, easier to get a crowd out in the heat than the cold. Bayou Wine Garden in Mid-City, with this attached Bayou Beer Garden, has been a longer running example of that as it's grown. And you see the strategies they have. Just a little bit of shade makes it tolerable. A strategically placed fan here or there, some misters. But what you're never going to hear is anyone say it's easy, because it's not. They build these places out, and throughout the year they look like geniuses when everything is going well, and you know, it's a late season football game. Everyone wants to be outside. The summertime is definitely a little bit more of a workaround. but some have really pulled it off. Station 6, our last example here. Great example of this. This one's in Metairie, in Bucktown, right on the water.
So delicious.
Now, nothing's right on the water, right? There's a flood wall in between this place and the water.
Almost.
As you can see, this was a really small
It's
restaurant.
at the lakeside, though, we should say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. 30 seats on the inside, 70 seats outside. It's a mostly outdoor restaurant that, as it's grown, has added more areas. But again, it's that patio effect, it's that dining outdoors, sort of on the porch feel. And what I hear there from the chef, very talented Allison Vega Noah, is that it fits with the more casual vibe. People want white tablecloth food, but they want to be able to wear shorts and flip-flops. And when you're outside, maybe there's a little bit of, you're feeling a little bit of that heat, but you're happy for the breeze coming through. Maybe the white wine tastes a little better with your seafood. People are happy to kind of make that trade-off in the right setting.
The pompano with cashews at Station 6.
I'd walk over Coles for that. Never mind. Never mind just a hot summer night. I'd walk over Coles.
Many fine things. Thank you, Ian. And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time we wanted the name of the New Orleanian that Hitler referred to as the new Noah. And what did he build that earned him that name? That's Andrew Higgins, of course. And he built the landing crafts that enabled the invasion at Normandy, and so much more. Now, tonight's question. One is an historic beach town. The other is a seat of government. They are located at the western and eastern ends of the Florida Panhandle. Name them. Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prize is a year subscription to Louisiana Life magazine, a dish towel with the message K. Sherrod from our friends at Wearable Vegetables, a pair of free admission passes to either the Audubon Zoo, Aquarium of the Americas, or the Butterfly Garden and Insectarium. You can go to WYES.org for our online calendar, including the official New Orleans Gay Pride Parade, which is next weekend. You can also link to WYES's YouTube channel to see our program. And now, John, hello.
Hello. Well, we have two shows at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art I want to talk about tonight. One is called Piercing the Wall, the Art of Dusti Bonge. Now, not many people in the area have heard of Dusti, but she was a rather prominent Mississippi artist who was very active and the first woman artist in Mississippi to become involved in the modernist art movements of the 20th century. And actually, the story behind her, it's a fascinating story. She was born in Biloxi, 1903, to a prominent banking family. Her name was Eunice Sweatman. She wanted to be an actress, so she went to college in Chicago. And there she met another artist by the name of Archie Bonge. And they married, and Archie was a good friend of another Mississippian, actually New Orleanian, by the name of Walter Anderson. They went to school together at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, became very good friends. In fact, Walter was the best man in their wedding. But once they had a child, she wanted to move back to Mississippi Gulf Coast, to Biloxi. And her husband died shortly thereafter, but she continued in the arts. And first working in the figurative movement, and then with the modernists dealing with surrealism, cubism, and later abstract expressionism. But she was discovered by galleries in New York. So she became very prominent in the art movement in New York with Jackson Pollock, Mark Rothko, and became really a pretty big name at that period. But never left the Gulf Coast, never left the New Orleans area, but didn't show in this area. So it's really a good show to see. It was curated by Bradley Summerall, and accompanying the show is, as far as I know, the really first full-length biography of Dusti. It was written by Rick Gruber, the former director of the Ogden Museum.
And her son, Lyle, was a photographer,
That's right.
prominent photographer.
Yep.
He did a book about New Orleans at Mardi Gras, I remember that.
Right.
Photographs, yeah.
Probably one of those great buys you got, too.
Yes. The book fair, right.
Well, the second show is called Vernacular Voices, Self-Taught, Outsider, and Visionary Art. That's the whole group together. These are the unschooled artists. Remember back in the early 1990s, Alice Yellen did this wonderful show at NOMA on called Passionate Visions, where the people at the time were calling them folk artists and all that, but really not, because these were untrained artists who were expressing visually and through their art their religious beliefs, social issues, and cultural life in the rural South, and mostly African-American art. In this show, it comes, it's part, actually all the works in this show come from the Ogden's collection. So by seeing this, it's apparent they have a really very fine collection of this type of art. And so I do see that too. It's dealing with artists from all across the South, not just Louisiana, and names that we know: Sister Gertrude Morgan, Clementine Hunter, Mose Tolliver, and that whole group, all represented in the show. Definitely see it.
All right, great. Thank you so
You're
much,
quite
John.
welcome.
And earlier today, Steppin Edwards and the Symphony Chorus of New Orleans visited with us to share the news about their next presentation and gave us a musical sneak preview. It's already been a busy season for the Symphony Chorus, and next up at Trinity.
Yes, our season finale is going to be the Duraflé Requiem featuring Paul Weber, who's the organist choir master at Trinity, and we're also doing the Bach Magnificat with 5 vocal soloists and a great big orchestra.
Wow, and then you're going to be busy again in June, well, later in June.
We have a sing-along event at Deutsches Haus. It's a thing called Beer Choir, where we sing and drink some beer.
Well, great fun. And so now let's hear from the Symphony Chorus, Mr. Steppin Out.
Sicut locutus locutus des patris nos, Abraham et semis eius et secus, sicut locutus eius et secus, sicut locutus eius et patris secus, sicut locutus eius et patris secus.
The Symphony Chorus of New Orleans performing McDougal's, of course, Requiem and Bach's Magnificat next Friday night at Trinity Episcopal Church. Visit symphonychorus.org for tickets. And now, Alan.
So I returned last week from one of my most successful trips to Broadway and have the scoop on the best musical of the year. I know because I saw all of the 5 nominees. First of all, there were a number of New Orleans connections that I made to the Great White Way, but I will have to reveal that to you next week, and as well as to my selection for the best musical. First off, my first outing was to see Beetlejuice. That's the Tim Burton-inspired musical starring Alex Brightman and Sophia Ann Caruso. This is probably the best translation of cinematic vision to a stage that I've ever seen. And with David Corens's work as designer for the sets, etc., I think it's a probable shoo-in for best set design. The music by Eddie Perfect is at times beautiful, but especially when it's sung by Sophia Ann Caruso's beautiful voice. I don't exactly know where it comes from, this waif of a almost childlike person, but she's just amazing to perform, to see what she does. And Alex Brightman, of course, is as zany as anything else you'll ever see in the show. Leslie Kritzer does steal the show occasionally with her performances as Delia and Miss Argentina. Well, next I moved on from the ridiculous to the sublime, and I have to tell you, I saw Hadestown. This is the musical by Anais Mitchell with New Orleans-style jazz as part of its soul and background. The show has garnered 14 nominations for Tony Awards, and leading all the other shows, and I believe you'll find out from me next week as to where I think it'll come out. Here's a photo taken backstage after the show by Tony winner Katie Huffman, who accompanied me, with Tony nominee Patrick Page, who's there. He was listed by Tony nominators as a featured actor. I really truly believe this is his show, though, as a leading actor. That was him with his wife Paige Davis Page. Next up was Ain't Too Proud. That's the life and times of the Temptations. All I can say, this is the one show that I think could really give Hadestown a run for best musical as well as the prom. This one has all the makings of what you want to see in a great Tony Award show. It's got all the 5 people who are in it nominated for 12 awards. Jesse Tyler Ferguson of Modern Family was in the audience, along with Gayle King of CBS News, who brought along her friend Oprah Winfrey.
Oh my goodness.
The show features over 30 songs. I took that shot of Oprah. Mostly by the Temptations, tells their powerful story of love, celebrity, drugs, and alcohol that beset all their careers. And of course, here I am with the Tony Award nominee for Best Actor in a Leading Role, Derek Baskin. He plays Otis Redding's, the first person, if you will, who founded the Temptations, and still the only one who still survives today. All the others of the original 5 have gone on. Fourth of the musicals being nominated is Tootsie, based, of course, on the Dustin Hoffman film that attempts to tackle the issue of how women are being discriminated against by having a man dress up as a woman and take away a job from a woman. But of course, they do address that problem early on in the process. The music by David Yazbek, who was last year's winner for the band's Visit, and a book by Robert Horn, who wrote TV's Designing Women, you may remember that, are both very good. The performance by Santino Fantana, however, I believe is singing and a dancing woman. He changes his voice, is magnificent. Juliet's Curse is the name of the musical that they set this in, so it's not a soap opera, it's a musical they take it, so they changed that part of it. He is the one, I think, to beat, though, as leading actor. Here's a photo, and how often do you see this? The book writer, Robert Horn, to the right, and there's the Tony nominee as well, Santino Fontana. And here's a shot of me and Santino after the show. Now, the last musical that I thought was probably as good as any I've seen on Broadway with a fantastic cast is The Prom. It's a story of what happens when narcissistic Broadway players come down to help, if you will, a young lady who is really being barred from taking her girlfriend to the prom. And the show resonates with all the political correctness that you would imagine. Beth Level and Brooks Ashmanicus are so funny. And another player, Christopher Silver, will really leave you with smiles on your face as you're exiting. May even shed a tear or two in the process. Next week, I'll have more on Broadway and a connection to those New Orleans friends. Meanwhile, very good news locally is that Flowers for Haley has been extended. This is the one-woman show that stars Troy Bechet, and it's a piece that she wrote. It's a powerful and uplifting piece about Mahalia Jackson, our own native daughter, who lived most of her time away from New Orleans, unfortunately. Bechet's sensitive portrayal of Mahalia Jackson is peppered with her indomitable spirit and her commitment to, sing the words of the Lord. She's featured in this 90-minute-long work, along with Kathleen Jones, who plays a young reporter engaged in trying to interview her. We see a side of Mahalia that we rarely have ever seen before in any of the historical documents. There's joy and happiness along with the sadder aspects of her life. Throughout it all, though, we hear this beautiful voice that Troy Bechet has, delivering this beautiful gospel music. We're prompted to sing along. We're prompted to clap along. Can I get an amen? Flowers for Haley continues through Sunday. Finally, I cannot recommend enough the small national tour of Come From Away that's coming into the Sanger. And again, it's cast is really a shade less than what I saw on Broadway. They're really a great equity show. I saw it 2 years ago, and it's still just as good. It's based on the true story of what happened on 9/11 when all of the international flights were diverted to Gander Airport in the area there in Newfoundland, when American airspace was essentially shut down. And at least 7,000 people ended up in this Newfoundland airport trying to figure out what to do with themselves. It's a true ensemble cast with many characters playing different roles. Music is really infectious and at times quirky. It all works, though. A story of friendship there exists and generosity at a time, of course, of personal crisis for so many. The show won a Tony for Best Director. It's really a beautifully done. Acting is excellent, but it beat out a lot of the bigger works that were on the boards that year. It shows that a small Broadway show can have as much impact as a large one with large rows of dancers and choreographies. Don't miss it. It's really a special show.
All right, and more Broadway stuff coming up next week. Okay, good. Now time for our picks. Ian.
We talked about dining outdoors. You can still do it the old-fashioned way, too. In fact, there's some new additions. Felix's on the lakefront and going into its second summer there now. Really nice perch for some raw oysters and fried seafood, too, and some nice drinks with this facing the sunset. That's a really nice place to be.
And, of course, you can also ride by boat.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Find yourself a boat first.
Find yourself a boat first.
You can do it the old-fashioned way, just float up.
Float up, right, Bobby?
Well, it's time to remember that we eat oysters all year round. And to celebrate that, the Oyster Festival this weekend at Waldenburg Park, free admission, and it's from 10:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night.
Okay, thank you. And John?
Well, I seem to like shows with historical themes to them. At the New Orleans Museum of Art, there's a photography show there by Timothy Duffy. It's called Blue Muse, and he's a North Carolina photographer. but he takes photographs of American roots musicians, blues, R&B players, but he does it in the 19th century tintypes, which are really extremely effective in black and white. It looks like something out of the 19th century there. But the show at Noma, and also has a show at the Gallery of Fine Photography on Charter Street, too. So in both places.
Good
one
old
you can see
Joshua
and one you can buy.
Paley.
That's
Yes,
right.
God bless Joshua Paley.
Absolutely.
So devoted with the gallery.
Well, he's done some wonderful things there in the last 30 years or more. That's really has.
Alan.
Following up on the heels of Me and My Girl, which was so good at Rivertown, the Patchwork Players, part of what they've taken over as part of their outreach to young people. June 3rd to the 9th, they're doing Sleeping Beauty, and that's going to be at Rivertown Theater's Performing Arts out on Minor Street in Kenner.
All right, good. You know, just hearkening back to Felix's and the whole drive up from the boat, a lot of people don't realize that that body of water is the last vestige of the New Basin Canal.
Oh,
Where the boats are coming out of the docks there, that's actually the New Basin Canal, which is kind of amazing to me.
Once and perhaps future, who knows in this town?
That's right, you never know. That's true, that's true. Well, we're really excited because next week we will also have a special guest, in addition to Poppy, our culinary historian and cookbook author. She's been with us before. It's been a while, though. Jessica Harris, in addition to Poppy. So we're glad to see all of you.
And she just won a James Beard Award for
And
cookbook
how's
writer.
that for, whoever
Absolutely.
programs the show? I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea. Anyway, welcome back, and thank you very much for watching. Good night.
This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area. And by New Orleans Tourism Marketing Corporation, New Orleans, where stories are created. Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich.